Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Truth About Living podcast. I'm your host, Bridget Tello, and I'm really honored to have your presence here with me on the podcast. This is one of our free flow days, and I love each day of the week that is dedicated to a different topic. But free flow days may be my favorite just because I have a list a mile long of things that I want to talk about and share with you guys. Ideas, concepts, resources, and so I'm always there's never, I tell you, there's never a shortage of things on my mind and on my heart that I want to share with you. So I get the freedom, a little bit of extra freedom there to do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But you never know what you're going to get, right? I would also like to thank you guys for the reviews that you've left for the podcast, for subscribing, because these things, they help the Truth About Living to grow. It's my mission to reach people and to inspire you to create a life that you truly love, a life without limits, an extraordinary life. Okay, I want you to fall in love with your life in every way. And so what you guys do to share this, I really sincerely do appreciate it. And I enjoy reaching people all over the world. And that's part of the joy of having an online presence, right? Which I talk about a lot on Fridays. So, but for today, I want to talk about something very special, which is the need or the desire or the timing for pausing and letting go. And let me share a little bit about what I mean when I say that. That there are times in our life when we need to pause and let go. Now, if you've been following me for a little while, you know that the root of this project, The Truth About Living, came about because of a pivotal time in my life where there was a sincere and deep longing need for a change. Okay? And what came out of that was I needed to pause. I needed to let go. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in action. Particularly, I think, if we run a business. But not necessarily always just for business, right? Activity, action, the need to be doing something to move us forward, doing something productive, doing something that's going to have a measurable effect. And certainly if you've been involved in business at all, especially internet marketing or anything like that, there's a lot of talk about productivity and efficiency and systems and strategies and presence everywhere. I just recorded an episode that's going to air soon on an Online Entrepreneurship Friday about the 10X rule from Grant Cardone and why I don't do that anymore. But it's just this idea of just being present everywhere and just doing everything to the 10th degree, 10Xing everything, your goals, your activity, your presence. And there's just this constant need to feel like you have to be doing everything. And you may have a list a mile long of things you need to learn, of strategies you need to implement. You may be following tons of people on social media. You may be in lots of Facebook groups. You may have emails coming to you from people who want to teach you this, and there's a new training on that, and you need to look at how they're doing it. But even outside of business, you could get wrapped up in this very easily in a number of other ways, right? I mean, I'm a part of a homeschooling community, and there's so much I feel like I need to be doing there that I feel sometimes pulled in all these directions. Now, for the most part, I have a peace about the way that we're homeschooling, but I also, am human, and I'm a mom, and I feel like I should be doing this a little bit better or that a little bit better. You could get into this with your health, with your nutrition. You could get sometimes hyper focused, but also just kind of in this constant action mode, action. And there's a saying, when you try hard, I mess up my cliches all the time. I mess up my quotes, but it's about, when you are trying hard, it actually becomes harder. That's the gist of it anyway. The harder you try, the harder it becomes. The harder you try, the harder it becomes. And so if you're just acting or feeling pulled in 1,000 directions and there's no clear focus, there's no clarity, sometimes it can be extremely beneficial to hit the pause button on all of that and just let go for a little while. Let's get specific. What does that mean, hit the pause button? Sounds nice, right? What does that mean, taking a 10-minute break from work? No, I think it's much bigger and much deeper than that. I'll give you an example. A few months ago, I hit the pause button and I actually began to withdraw from certain things. So it's funny because I'm saying, you have all this action, all this activity, all of these being pulled in all these directions, and I'm asking you to pause, but I'm also asking you to consider a little bit of different kinds of action. So for me, that action was actually physically, leaving certain groups that I felt no longer served me, or groups that I thought would serve me a year from now. Going on to Facebook, I go onto Facebook. I have, in the past few months, unfollowed so many groups and even, acquaintances. Not because of anything negative, but because I felt an extreme need to simplify. Something pops up in the news feed that someone I don't even really know. You know how that happens, right? You get connected on Facebook, but you don't really know them. And then, you're seeing what they like and what they're saying. It's just kind of, it's a little bit, it can be a little bit of noise, right? It can be a little bit of mental noise. And I really wanted to refine my mindset, refine what I was, feeding into my mind. So, again, it's nothing negative. It's just a matter of just clicking that button. I'm scaling back. I'm scaling back on these things. I'm really wanting a mental peace. I'm really wanting clarity. I'm really wanting focus. I'm really wanting just a few key things in my life right now. I also decided to close down certain subscriptions that I had for various software that I was not making full use of. Just really taking this overall look at what I wanted to change. And again, this was not something I did within the course of one day. This took weeks and weeks, and I'm still doing it. I'm still refining, right? But I really just completely stopped my activity on that particular work project. I sent out a few emails giving apologies for certain things that I had done interviews with certain people that I was going to air. And then when I made this change, I wanted to, act with integrity and to really speak with these individuals and honor that they had chosen, to share with me in that way, but to let them know that I was needing to go in a different direction. And so there were things like that I kind of wrapped up. There was a wrapping up period. But there was no new activity. There was no new, I've got to learn this, Facebook ads method. There was no, I've got to get this done by this date. It was just kind of a pausing and taking, a deep breath, really. A deep breath emotionally, a deep breath literally, and letting that be okay. Now, here's the thing about that. When you do this, I would recommend that there is that you have some kind of a basis for faith in this. That's not to say that you won't have a day where you feel, where we don't all feel at some point, a degree of despair, or a degree of failure, or a degree of just unhappiness. I don't know, but that may happen. But there's also underlying that, this faith, and that's part of what carried me through that. It's like, there is something meant for me, and it doesn't have to be super specific at that time. It just needs to be an underlying belief that will carry you through this period, where you need to just step back. And for you, it may be a small issue and you just need to take a day off. Just take one day off of work and pause, and reconnect with your own inner self, But for me, this went on for a period of weeks where I engaged in this kind of pausing process. There's a little bit of fear that can creep in when you do this because, in my case, I had income coming in from certain online projects. And when you step back from everything and you're shifting your projects, your plans, your strategies, your online presence, there's this fear that the income's not going to be the same, that there's people who are going to have opinions about you, especially if you're putting yourself out there in a personal way, if you're a coach or a consultant or a speaker or something like that. When you put yourself in the public eye, that's part of it. So there's a little bit of fear that comes into that and being judged, right? But the foundation, again, has got to be in faith. That's what's going to see you through that. And how you develop your own spiritual practice or your own mindfulness practice or whatever your faith-based system is, just acknowledging that all is well, that you have always been taken care of and you're taken care of now. That you've always had what you needed and you have what you need now. And so say these things to yourself, right? And that's part of the letting go process too. So it's the pausing and the letting go. Letting go of the need to control everything. Some of the less enjoyable things in my business have been when I became hyper-focused on achieving a very particular thing. Now, this is a catch-22 a little bit, right? Because, we need goals. We need goals. I'm a big believer that we need goals, and we need specific goals. We need something to set our mind to, something to achieve, something to work towards. And there's a lot of value in goal setting. However, you can also get too hyper-focused on the details of certain things and attach all of your, inadvertently, by the way, attach all of your happiness or fulfillment to the achievement of that particular thing. I'll give you an example. When I started this podcast, okay, this was a dream of mine for about, 2 or 3 years. I wrote it down a while back that in 2017 I would start a podcast. I didn't know what it was going to be about, but I knew I was drawn to that and I knew the right thing would come at the right time, and it did. So I'm living the fulfillment of that, and it's beautiful. And as of right now, February 2017, it's only been active for a couple of months and we've gotten about 5,000 downloads. And so I am reaching the ears of 5,000 in one way or another, depending on how you want to look at, episodes versus subscribers and all that. That's what I'm talking about. You can get too much into the details. So if I sit in the success of that I am reaching you're listening to this, I consider that a success, and it's growing. And I love doing it. Okay? I love it. I just am astonished that this can be livelihood, that this can be, doing something that I love so much that I would do as a hobby and a heartbeat is actually, providing income for my family. So it's a beautiful thing, absolutely beautiful. I could talk to you for 20 minutes straight about all the things I love about this podcast. But what I caught myself doing, because, of our egos, right? And because we get hyper-focused, and because we are taught that you have to work hard to achieve, and that things can be a struggle, and that you have to, XYZ, fill in the blank, 10x everything. And, what I found is that in my initial launch of the podcast, in my sincere desire to make the podcast successful, to share it with as many people as possible, I was asking friends and colleagues to download it. I was running ads. I was doing everything that I thought I should be doing to make it a successful launch. And I got hyper-focused on one particular thing, which was that I wanted the podcast to reach new and noteworthy on iTunes. That was one of my goals, was to reach new and noteworthy on iTunes. Now, I had worked with a business coach who had achieved this. This seemed very doable, very reasonable. There's certain things you do and iTunes will rank you, And so she had achieved this a few years back. I also had an audio engineer who had some strategies for making this happen. And I was reading blog articles on how to do this. And I got hyper focused on it. I was checking every day, sometimes multiple times a day, where's my ranking? How many reviews do I need? How many downloads do I need to get, new and noteworthy? And I started to have a period there was about 3 or 4 days in a row there where I was more focused on that than even the creative process of creating the content. And so this is where mindfulness comes in, right? Where I catch myself doing this and realize, okay, why is it so important to me that it's all new and noteworthy? Well, I think that it's important to me because of a couple reasons. One, if you can achieve that, then you reach new listeners, right? So your listener base will just the theory is that your listener base will really expand tremendously because you get a lot more visibility, right, on iTunes. But then there's also it's a marker. To me, it was like a marker of success. If I achieve this, that will mean that I've been a success. So we hang our significance on these, achievements, big or small. We hang our significance. We hang our ability to be happy and fulfilled and successful on these little markers, right? Now, is there anything wrong with setting a goal to achieve new and noteworthy on iTunes podcast? Of course not. Having goals is very healthy and it gives you a direction. But there's a balance that needs to happen there, right? Because if your focus on getting something starts to get in the way of what actually, drove you towards that purpose in the first place, then something's out of alignment, right? And I started to find that I did not enjoy checking those stats every day. I did not enjoy checking it and not seeing it there, and I know my visualization techniques. I'm well schooled in believing, and you get what you believe and you expect. But for me personally, getting hyper-focused in this way was not in my best interest. And so I decided that instead of reviewing my ad strategy, instead of, emailing 100 more people for reviews, instead of continuing down that path, what I was going to do instead was to pause and let go and have faith, that this podcast is serving its purpose and that it's going to unfold in the way it's meant to unfold, and that my job was to focus on the message. My job was to focus on the content. My job was to put my heart and soul into what I wanted to communicate with you, and that God would take care of the rest. That's where I left that. And I'll tell you, it's been weeks since I engaged in that process of pausing and letting go. And what's happened for me is that my happiness and fulfillment level has actually increased in terms of my mental peace, right? And the goals that I have for income for the site, and my goals that I have for clients, and my goals that I have for speaking engagements. All of these things are unfolding beautifully. There's nothing to worry about. I put my trust and my faith in God and the universe. And it's not that you shouldn't do business strategies. Of course, I would never advocate that you just sit there and meditate and never implement a business strategy. There's a balance, though, that needs to happen, right? And so it's kind of a constant little dance that I think we do. And you have to find your own balance. If you're very type A and you really need to be structured and very active and constantly going after, something in a very active way, that may serve you, okay? So it's checking in with knowing yourself, right? Know yourself. Know when it's time to hit the pause button. If you are, here's some signs, okay, that you're not in alignment. Here's some signs that maybe what you're doing is not working. If you are feeling angst, if you are feeling confused, if you are feeling unhappy, unfulfilled, unsatisfied, if you are feeling discouraged, if you are feeling despondent, if you are feeling despair, if you're feeling overwhelmed. Okay, all of these are telltale signs that something needs to shift, that it may be time to pause and let go. So you can actually be thankful for when things reach a certain level of discomfort. Because if you're kind of mid-level, like, there's some stress, but I'm doing okay, there's some stress, but I'm doing okay, you might continue that pattern for years. But when things get to a discomfort level, things are uncomfortable enough that you are seriously feeling like you're not thriving, you are seriously feeling that something is off, you know when that is, then that's maybe the time that you can be thankful that things have reached that point, because that's a point at which you can pivot. That's a point at which you can stop, pause, listen, reflect, let go. Let go of the reins of everything. Let go of the need to control everything. Find more peace. Develop your faith. These are good things. These are good things. Okay, developing your belief system. Finding joy and satisfaction in statements like, I can feel my clarity unfolding. You don't have to focus on the fact that you're confused. It can be quite delicious to get into those beginning stages of new thoughts. Now, maybe you're not completely comfortable saying to yourself, I am completely 100% clear on my purpose, and, da-da-da-da-da. Maybe you're not clear doing that, comfortable doing that yet, because it doesn't feel real enough. But you can start down that path. You can start to experience an eagerness that clarity is coming. I am so eager to discover my new purpose, my new alignment. I'm so eager to see my business unfold in new and beautiful ways to serve. I am so happy that I'm at this point, at this crossroads, for new things to transpire in my life. So you see how you can get from things are not going well to a midpoint here, where you begin to expect good things. You begin to expect a change is coming. And that will move you into the firmer statements, what I know when I wake up in the morning what I'm meant for. Maybe you're not quite there yet. That's okay. Take a step back a little bit, get in that mid-level, that eagerness, that anticipation. And that can happen when you pause and let go. connecting with yourself in this way is personal growth, it's spiritual growth, it's well-being, it's thriving. It is part of, what I'm always talking about, which is creating a life that you truly love. And that's what I want for you. Don't be afraid to withdraw from some activities. Don't let the fear part, fear of missing out on, some key information that you feel was going to be the one thing that you really needed for your business or something. Don't let that fear prevent you from hitting the pause button and letting go. Just tap into your faith, tap into the quiet, and listen. You will find answers. You will get answers. Pause and let go. I want to thank you so much for your presence here on the podcast today, The Truth About Living. Please do connect with me more personally over in our group, the Facebook group. The link for it is in the description here on iTunes. I am so grateful for you here today. And I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get the course in gratitude as well, which is available at thetruthaboutliving.com. It's a free 3-day course I've created, and it's available for 2 or 3 months at least, maybe more. Right now it's February 2017, so depending on when you're listening to this, go over there and grab it, and I'll connect with you there as well. So I hope that this has inspired you to pursue your best life possible. And thank you again. And I'll say goodbye for now.